So any questions fire away on anyone's, our business or anyone else's business up here? I think one of the common questions we get when we're talking to the investment community, which is that question will remain in perpetuity, but it's what drives your growth, right? I mean, how do you continue to grow your business? And we talk about a combination of organic growth being these guys, right? At the end of the day, these CEOs are effectively our sales force. We're a B2B company. So in some cases we're selling to industry and to companies directly, and on most cases we're not. And we're really relying on the passion and drive and the investment of other companies to drive our growth, and that becomes, in some ways, a kind of a perpetual story, right? I mean, you launch with gaming in Australia, you transfer that to the UK, you transfer that to Jersey, you transfer that to New York, California, Illinois, etc., etc. So, it might be the one customer in PointsBet, but that growth continues as they expand, we expand. And so I've said many times, and I'll say it, I'll continue to say it many times, that revenue growth or GDV growth is not the thing that keeps me up at night, because hopefully you've seen, when you look at the calibre of the businesses and the markets that they're in, we're working with them, and they're driving a lot of our upside and growth too.
So this is a question for Sam. So just wanted to get your sort of take on your strategy for expanding into the other 5 states that legalize sports betting in the US.
Yep.
Especially any sort of obstacles in your way and sort of...
Yeah, the biggest challenge is you need a partner. So some groups like Caesars, they already have a casino in multiple states, so they have access for themselves, or MGM, they have access for themselves. But other groups like the track that we did the deal with, they don't have a sports betting capability, so they need to partner with someone like us. So there's plenty of independents, let's call them independents, smaller operators that need a partner. And we believe we've got a compelling partnership sell, obviously, and we've been very fortunate since we set up, so I didn't have time to touch on it, but William Hill USA is one of the bigger players in the US, and basically their best strategy person left William Hill to join us, which is another vote of confidence for us. Another RFP that we took part in was in the state of Connecticut, a tribal casino called Foxwoods Casino. We've actually found out subsequently that we won that RFP process as well, again beating out 10 other competitors. Unluckily for us, and tragically, the CEO dropped dead during the process, and the head of digital who was running the process with the CEO then struggled to sell PointsBet as an earlier stage business to partner with rather than a more established company. So they've potentially have gone with someone else, but we're still in the running. But that person, who's very highly regarded across the industry, has great relationships throughout the tribal sector, he left Foxwood to join PointsBet. So there's lots of validation points that we're seeing where, if people get to hear our story and they get to speak to us, then we're very confident that we'll get deals in various states. And I'd be pretty confident. Some states, as I said, there might be 3 or 4 casinos and there are Caesars, MGM and a Boyd and you can't get in or something like that. But we're working on deals with multi-state groups as well to perhaps do something more strategically with them. But even if we have to go around and independently gain access and do deals with states, we're pretty confident we'll get our fair share. Obviously, a big proof point is going live in New Jersey. If you go live in New Jersey at the end of this month and it goes smoothly and you start acquiring clients well and proving again another credibility point, then our life's going to be much easier. If we go live with New Jersey and the app doesn't work and whatever else, well then that's going to hinder our business development efforts.
Sam, another question for you, if I can.
Call the gaming analyst.
Popular man. So the gaming cards have done really well in Australia over the last 4 or 5 years, let's say. I'm trying to wonder if there are any structural impediments as to why that won't be replicated in the US. And the obvious one on my mind is obviously US intercharge, and the fact that moving funds around in the US is a lot more costly than it is in Australia. What's your view about penetration rates for the gaming cards in the US market?
Yeah, I think, I've worked on racing ADW sites in America in the past, and their banking system's pretty ordinary. Like, we have it good in Australia, how quickly and efficiently we move money around with EFT payments and online banking, etc. They call it ACH payments over there, and it's nowhere near as robust as our system. So I think on face value, the opportunity is greater because the advantage over a non-EML card system is greater. Costs, yeah. Again, though, if the advantage is greater, if the cost is slightly more, well then, the motivation remains to accept the use of the card. I think it can't be underestimated in the New Jersey market initially, and this will help the immediate appeal of it, that 50% failure rate on cards. So online casinos have been live in Jersey for 2 years. They still have failure rates, like that. Online sportsbooks have been live in Jersey for a couple of months, and they're still having these 50% failure rates. So the fact that a credit card payment onto an EML card gets processed with a different transaction code than a gambling transaction means you get that 100% success rate. I'll be honest, that was the overriding driver that just said we just have to get the EML card, because we can see that immediately the word will get around, and that will be very significant for us. And we have a very strong tech team. These guys obviously know what they're doing. Integration's seamless. It's very easy. So I'm pretty bullish. And to be honest, I think this is the start for this. We do have aspirations in other markets. Australia is probably the least of those markets, but less developed markets. And if you think about why a market might be less developed, it's normally because the banking system isn't so great. They haven't quite got through the smartphone penetration, all those sorts of things. There's lots of possibilities for an EML card in some more developing areas. So this is a start for us, and we think we can leverage the relationship in other markets as well.
Just to be clear on what the solution is, because so people will be familiar with the US with cannabis payments, right? So cannabis is legal or cannabis is an industry, might be legal in 25 states and not legal in the rest. So because it's illegal federally, if you are a credit card holder of a federal bank or a bank with a federal banking license, B of A, Citigroup, Fifth Third, etc., you can't use those cards in a cannabis store, even though you could be a resident in a state where cannabis is legal and you're buying it from a regulated dispensary and what have you. You can't use that card, right? And there are people trying to solve that in that industry too. It's exactly the same in gaming. So because it's legal at a state level, I might be a resident of New Jersey, I'm a customer of a bookmaker licensed in Jersey, but I'm a Citibank card holder. I wouldn't be able to use that Citibank card to make a deposit to PointsBet, because the gaming code is 75556 or whatever that number is. So within the world of MasterCard, that'll be blocked. We're not a gaming operator, so EML's a financial service provider, right? So if they were going to block that code, they're blocking the code for every single EFT movement in the country. So a customer with to use that same example, a B of A card will load money to us, to our site, so that money will go to our card. The funds will then go from our card to PointsBet. So it means that's the difference, and I think that'll stay, I'd say in perpetuity, but for the long haul, because there will be some states that never prohibit gaming in the US. Utah, it's in their constitution to never approve gaming, because they're obviously, it's a Mormon state. There are other states that have got major prohibitions against gaming. So I don't think it will ever become federally legislated. So I think the role that we play will be the same in most markets.
Just a question for Nick. Can you give us an idea of what's the potential growth in your business from shifting from the closed loop digital cards to the open loop?
We probably do around 100 mil in open loop now. and I'd be guessing on what we do for the sort of closed loop stuff, it'd be sort of 20 to 30. I think all that would go almost, and then I think there'll be some cannibalisation of the physical, and then there'd be just the natural growth of those new channels that we talked about. So we're sort of forecasting about 50% increase in total load for us within the next sort of 12 months, but a combination of part cannibalisation of card, part churn from the digital closed loop to the new pay system, and then just the incremental opportunities that we'll get through having this system to open up new channels. Yeah. All it's all e-match. It's all EML.
Sorry, say that again.
How do you accommodate 55,000 charities?
Yeah, we're not going to accommodate 55,000 charities, obviously. But the app actually enables you to categorise into different headings and different areas. And actually it's harder to get onto our platform than you'd think. There's a very rigorous diligence process that we go through. And in fact, it's interesting, one of the charities, in fact, two of the charities that we were dealing with that you would think would have everything under control, because we would go through the regulatory regime to get the approval, which is a pretty quick process. But as we wanted to be approved as a fundraiser, we found out their licence had expired, which meant they would have been raising money without a licence. So it's actually a lot harder to get on than you'd expect. But we've sort of modelled it out so that we would have at any one point in time probably 50 what we call charities at any one time, but we'd have all these local communities. So one of the things we didn't talk about was My Community, which is another part. So charities are what you'd call registered DGRs essentially, and My Community is about your local community. So it could be your local school, your local footy club, your local church group, and whatever. And that will be a separate part, and that might be unlimited because that is more geographically based, generally speaking. So like with some of the other apps, our solution is GPS spatial location, so we know where you are when you are at any point, so you can choose the local community based upon your location. But yeah, it creates a lot of opportunity, obviously.
I think my question might have been answered then, but I just wanted to say, without using the A word, that all the passion and commitment from each of you today was fantastic, so thank you. My question was to you, Adam, which was partly answered there, but how does an NDIS charity get onto your Impact Pay?
Well, we're going through that process as we speak. We were approached by one of them. In fact, one of the big banks recommended they speak to us because they didn't have an existing system solution. And obviously at that point, we then reached out to EML to talk through, because we know that they've been looking at that space as well. And obviously with their payment solution at the back end and our front end opportunity, it creates a really nice partnership. The answer, to be perfectly honest, is it depends. So our core function at the moment would be to receive funds from the government or through trustees that would be distributing payments, and we would then allocate payments to either individuals or particular groups, be able to track those payments, report on those payments, and then put it into an accounting package that would actually push it back up to the government, and they can actually keep track of what's going on with those disbursements. So it's a closed loop system essentially, but the important thing is that we can track those payments against individuals as well as service providers, and we can control, because we have in our solution what we call delegated authority. We're the ultimate decider as to whether or not a payment is approved every time someone uses our card. So we can actually make sure that it's being used for the right service provider in accordance with the plan that's been set for that individual. Hopefully that answers the question.
I've got a question for Asher. I find our program, I understand. Crypto, I find very confusing. How do people stay in touch with all of these things? I mean, Ethereum, Ripple, Bitcoin, stablecoin. I find it really difficult to understand. So, how do people grasp where it's heading in order to decide whether they want to actually invest in it or not?
So there have been some news publications dedicated to cryptos. A lot of it true.
Are they for young people or old farts?
For both. So for younger people, very much in the influencer community, small communities, Telegram groups, chat groups are big in the crypto community. in the more established communities, you see CNBC has their own crypto TV show now.
There you go.
Many of the news networks also dedicate a segment to Eml.Con is on TV talking about crypto prices
Yeah,
as
he
well.
does,
So,
he does,
you know, there is coverage on all sides, and I think media have seen a place where they can play. There is definitely demand, and you know, it's going to take time to build up the capabilities, but both traditional and new media outlets are both going into this space.
Sorry, question for Adam. Just wanted to know, in terms of the global charity companies, are you seeing some certainly interest from them in terms of you being able to offer that facility for them, or did they push back because there's some transparency now, so that people know that 80% of those things are actually going direct to the needy people and not so much to the charities?
Yeah.
And two, what do you see from a global perspective for your company next?
Great, thank you. So the answer is it's a very interesting situation. So the big globals, let's call them, you know, like the accounts, you know, the big four, like, you know, World Vision, Plan International, and who the other? Oxfam. I'm just looking at Regina there to remind me. Anyway, they've jumped all over us, absolutely, because they're realising they're actually struggling to engage with the next level, the next generation of givers, right? They obviously, I don't think they've thought through the issue of the transparency yet. There is an organisation, which we will remain nameless, that is quite a high profile one, it's an Australian-based one, who refused to join unless we removed our, what we call 100% use rule. For they didn't want to be held account for where the money was going. And this is a really big organisation that a lot of young people would have a very close affinity to. And we said, we're not compromising our philosophy on that. And we said, no, they didn't want to have any ties to how the money could be used. So we said, bad luck. And that's a hard thing to do when you're trying to build out credibility, right? But you've got to stick to your principles. In terms of the global opportunity, look, to be perfectly honest with you, sort of like in the sports betting scenario, Australia is interesting but slightly irrelevant. You know, we're really desperate to get this just proven here in Australia in the next couple of months, and then really launch over in the US would be number one. And we know there's a big demand. You know, the charitable giving space is huge. The challenge, I think, in the US is that the tap and go mentality is not as big as it is in Australia. But that's, who cares? Like, again, you've got a 12, 13, 14 times market space over there. So, you know, okay, if it's not as big on the tap and go, no big deal. It's still a lot of money. And also in the UK and Europe as well. And to be honest, you know, the EML guys are the ones who have actually come to us and sort of said, hey, you've got to start thinking about how you're going to get into these markets, and let's work together around how we can do that. Yeah, thank you.
You obviously have a very strong relationship with EML today and strong growth prospects for all your businesses. Could you talk a bit about switching costs in terms of, you know, this is a pretty core service that they're offering, but down the track, the difficulty in replacing this for whatever reason?
To anyone, or?
No.
Yeah.
So I'll answer that question, right? So I'll give you an honest answer, and I can see everyone's getting really nervous now in terms of what I'm going to say. Okay, and that's fair enough.
I'm not nervous.
No, I'll tell you the honest truth. You know, we talked beforehand, right? The honest truth is, why would you leave an organisation that's bending over backwards to bust their guts to help you, right? You know, a couple of cents here and there, sort of is interesting but irrelevant in the bigger scheme of things. Ultimately, and I think Rochelle said this, people buy from people, and that's my philosophy anyway. You know, we've had absolutely, and we continue to have, and we will absolutely have going forward, very robust conversations. It has to work for both parties, there's no doubt about it. The switching costs for us to move out of an EML scenario would be high, right? There's no doubt about that. Is it impossible? No, of course it's not impossible. You know, but would we want to do it? I could see no conceivable reason at the moment, unless they really screw me over, which is not in their best interest if you think about it, to do that, right? That's the honest truth.
Look, from my perspective, I'm probably not qualified to sort of answer it at this stage because we're just starting the relationship. And I had, obviously I was aware of EML and what they'd done in the Australian market. I actually bought shares in EML, I reckon, 6 years ago, and I'm not sure if I made any money or not. But when they got the first Ladbrokes deal, because I could see the potential of the market, basically. So from our perspective, we've got a lot of things to worry about, core business things to worry about. They're the known market leader in what they do in our sector. It'll be a long time before we look at alternatives, and I'm not aware of anyone who really competes strongly in that market. Yeah.
From the edge side, we've been client for 12 years, but and we're stuck pretty much. I hate to say it from Tom, Richard and Rochelle, but you know, our systems are so intertwined with theirs. You know, we're selling an integrated solution. There aren't a lot of direct competitors anyway for what we'd want. They're certainly not as sophisticated or as complete. So it makes it messy for us because we'd need to bridge things together or cover the gaps. And same thing, it's just that's not our core business. We're out there trying to sell, you know, marketing programs, and we need that back end to work. And for us to try and do colour in the bits with another provider just doesn't make sense. And so yeah, but either way, like to try and change out some of those programs that are in place is really, really tricky for us. So we try and do the right thing by each other every contract negotiation. And
12 years in.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, it's quite integrated. And then the pacing obviously is new. There's nothing like it in the market from what we see. You know, revolutionise our business as well. So we're all in on that as well. So for us, you know, we get all the benefits of it. Sometimes it's be nicer to have some manoeuvrability, but hey, we're all in, and that's the way it is. We're stuck.
Get the ideal customer, mate.
Yeah,
totally
pretty much.
Jam. But I mean, you know, even to that point, though, you know, I can't think of customers we've lost, you know, over the time. But you know, we've been talking about this for years, right? I mean, operational risk is a killer. I mean, if we launched this program in Jersey, just like we would have launched, you know, Bet365 in the UK, if they don't work, customers give you no second chance. I mean, it's as flat out simple as that. So, you know, the execution risk is always you know, our customers won't find other providers if you execute. You know, if you don't, they'll find someone really quick if there's someone out there. There's got to be a reason for them to want to go and to want to go and do it. And the other reason they'll do it is if you get lazy. I mean, it's simple. You know, it's a complacency kills, right? So I mean, I think since I've been here in 2012. We had physical gift cards with Edge. We then launched virtual gift cards with Edge. We've done reloadable programs with Edge. Now we're doing the pays with Edge. It'd be easy not to do any of that. I mean, building the pays, what, 500 grand? I mean, several hundred grand of development, right? I mean, you can't do any of that without Apple charging you. I'm not even going to say what they charge us, but it was 6 figures. Android are no different. Samsung are no different. I mean, these things have a cost, right? But you're investing years ahead of where you think the revenue will be. And if you don't, they'll find somebody else, right? So, I mean, it's execution risk and complacency. So we as a company are always developing programs to add value to our customers, not tomorrow, but what we think will be 2, 3, 4 years down the track. I mean, cash top-up, which we offer in Australia, so you can load cash into a gaming account at certain retail stores. Yeah, we built that. It operates in you know, it's here. I think we're probably doing 50 million a year. Possibly it might be running through that into accounts. You know, it may never live up to expectation in Australia because people can use credit cards more readily. But what if banks put a ban on credit usage? Right, for recreational punters to load their money into their gaming account, what would they do, right? Yeah, hopefully they don't do that too. But if they do that, where do people find these things? And we'll have built that. We built it 3 years ago, right? So you're building things in anticipation of how you think the regulatory environment's going. You're building it in terms of how you think customer appetites are changing. You know, laziness will kill you. So. I think it's coffee time. Rich, Jesus, you've asked it.
You mentioned earlier, it's not just the cups. You're looking at other reusable products. What else is Frank Green looking at?
So from getting rid of single use, we're looking at bags, backpacks, bento boxes. If you haven't noticed, Frank Green's more of a brand than just a cup. The cup is, beautifully designed, and EML have done a great job of supporting us on that. And getting back to the previous question, it's almost impossible to pull out of the EML platform without destroying your product. So well done. So where we're heading with that.
Get the screwdriver out of them.
So what we're basically doing is we're looking across the globe and saying, where is contactless taking off? What are the single-use products that are in those markets? What sort of regulatory action is being taken in that area? And how can we then enter that market and provide that? In doing so, also providing the payment capability, because most people are carrying these things now. And so they'll be getting wristbands. We can put bands around other cups if they prefer. And we'll be taking advantage of things such as allowing people to have multiple devices all taken from the same funding source, so it's easily managed. So basically tapping into the best things of all these worlds.
First of all, I've seen hundreds of people taking pictures. I'm sure Tom isn't that good looking. So the presentations are all available on the ASX. So any of the information today, it's all been published this morning around about 8:30. We would love some more photos though by our media wall. So if you do want to have a photo, or you're willing to have a photo with us, please head over to media wall. We'll get some photos as well. Final one is, everybody's been telling me how breakage is going to die for the last year. We've proven today it's not going to die because you've not spent anywhere near enough on your money in your cup. So if you could spend some more money, raise some more funds for Impact Pay's chosen charity, which is Sydney Children's Hospital, that would be really fantastic to up that number, get some money off your Pay's card, get some money off your Frank Green Cup. And we'd love to see some more funds raised for the Sydney Children's Hospital as well. On behalf of EML, I really would like to thank our presenters, and Tom's going to help me out, for all the time that's gone into these presentations. You've seen there's a huge amount of work into each and every single one of these presentations. This way, drop it. Everybody's taken time out of their busy days. Our media guys have been remorseless about chasing you guys up for the presentation and helping get it in the right format and exactly how they want it. We really do appreciate all of the time you've put into it. Thank you very much once more on behalf of EML.
Here we go.
Coffee's running until 1 p.m, so if you want to hammer these guys for any more information, then feel free. They're here till 1. The other people that sort of the hidden people behind the scenes for EML at this event have been some of our partners. We couldn't have put on today without the help of a whole host of people, but including Global Payments. We've got some people here today who have newly formed a relationship with, who've done all the POS terminals for us, which allows us to collect a lot of money from the Sydney Children's Hospital. So we're proud to be working with them. Seventh Beam, who are in the audience today. Seventh Beam have been working with us extensively on some of our front ends and our apps and our portals. So we've worked really well with Seventh Beam, as have Adam with his app and several others. So that's been fantastic. And finally, and not least, is Prodigy Plus, who's our communications gurus. That's probably the best way of describing them. They do a lot of work with me on the financial results, on the ASX presentations. They've done a huge amount of work with Richard on our new branding that you've seen demonstrated here today. They've helped coordinate this event. They've worked with all of you guys on pulling your presentations together. They've been absolutely fantastic. So for Wade, Matt and Mary here today and all the team in Brisbane, thank you very much. The last thank you, and the very last one, is to all the EML staff who've been contributing to this. We've just called out some of the guys who really have put in extra hours on top of their day job in terms of pulling this event together. It's taken a huge amount of work. Probably never would have said yes, Tom, had we known how much work this is going to take. Scary. From Amy and Kate from our operations team, who've been working with on the coffee tables, they've been working the POS terminals, they've been working the Macmillan Shakespeare app. For our salary packaging, thank you. Rachel's been registering you with Noreen and making sure everyone got coffee cups as they came in. We knew everybody was. Malcolm and Karen have been running around. We've had our pregnant lady running around with a microphone. It's been crazy. Brandon around somewhere at the back. Tom, obviously. Richard on all the creative. and Justin, who has been sweating those demos. Test it one more time. And then Rochelle as well, who's been absolutely instrumental in pulling together such a fantastic conference with all of you guys. So thank you very much. Enjoy the show, and there's some lunch at the back and some more drinks. Please take the opportunity.